Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the day 2 of one mega event. And the session is Improving Governance Model. I would like to call upon Shri Tikender Singh, Deputy Mayor, Shimla Municipal Corporation on stage. Mr. Tikender Singh Pawar built the students' movement in the Himalayas on the issues of education for all. He became the president of Students' Union. He worked as a youth activist in the capacity of General Secretary of DYFI in Himachal Pradesh. Presently, he is directly elected Deputy Mayor of Shimla City. The city has been able to create a vision with the development plan that speaks about inclusive growth, great planned social infrastructure. Apart from this, he has represented the city and the country on many international events. Now I would like to request Sir to take over and introduce the other speakers. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and I welcome you all for this day 2, and this one of the most important sessions that probably we have, because this is what I've always been saying and always coined, that the repository of smart cities and cities per se happens to be the elected institutions that we have in this country. And that is why I think the Mayor's Conclave happens to be one of the most important events as far as taking forward the agenda of cities and the smart cities is concerned. And so we will be discussing, because we have 3 sessions today. We will be discussing governance. We'll be also discussing within the governance what are the challenges, because this is what I was discussing with the Nagpur Additional Commissioner. Is there a contradiction brewing in between because this is what we are also witnessing in some of the cities in our country, where this contradiction between the elected and the kind of model that has been developed called the SPV. The basic intention of the SPV is to carry forward the agenda, and all those things. Probably we'll have a bare perusal of all these issues once we start discussing. And so I will also come in the debate a little later, maybe. So, and before that, I am also very elated to introduce to you all the speakers that we have for this session, which speaks about governance. Of course, this is the first session happens to be on governance. And let me also call on stage all the speakers. First and foremost, Mr. Joel Cherkis, GVP Infrastructure, Education and Health from Oracle. So please, sir, take the seat. And then we have Mr. Patrick Santillo, Minister Counselor for Commercial Affairs, U.S. Embassy. Please, you're welcome. And then we have Shri, we have Dr. Ramanath Sonawane, the Additional Commissioner. I didn't know the name, sir, actually. I chatted with him in the morning. Nagpur Municipal Corporation. And Miss, in fact, I should have called you the first. Miss Margaret Allan. But she says she must be called Marg Allan. Okay. So Miss Marg Allan, Regional Director, Loddon, Mallee, State Government of Victoria, Australia, India. Is that all? I don't think the last name is coming. Yeah, that's all. Okay. So we have 4 speakers. What I'm going to do is we have 90 minutes. Since we started a little late, so maybe we have 70 minutes. And since we have 4 speakers, 10 minutes each, that means 40 minutes. And the rest of the time can be utilized for discussion and interaction that we have, maybe sharing experiences about governance as far as the Smart City project is concerned. So right at the outset, I think I must call upon Mr. Joel Cherkis, who happens to be the Global Vice President of Infrastructure, Government, Education and Health in Oracle's Industries, one of the principal sponsors of this program, focused on driving industry strategy and solutions that deliver across Oracle's customer partner base. And he has also spent 15 years helping customers and partners better utilize collaborative solutions and the process of infrastructure consolidation, while staying focused on understanding how and when technology should be used to solve organizational problems. He has recently also joined Oracle after spending 11 years at Microsoft, oh wow, where in his most recent role as the General Manager of Government and Defense Industry Sales within the Worldwide Public Sector Division, he was responsible for driving more than $8 billion in annual revenue. I think that would be enough. I still have another half a paragraph to read. Probably that is enough. And so Mr. Joel Cherkis will make a presentation.
Great, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. And my goal, just so everybody realizes, my goal is not to give a presentation as much as to spark ideas for a conversation. I'll use a couple of slides just to paint the vision in case some of the sites that I talk about are not necessarily familiar with some of the people that are there. So, as stated, my name is Joel Cherkis. I look after, I'm going to actually move to the side a little here if you don't mind. So I look after Oracle's government, education, and health industries. And what that means is we look at what's happening in the world and trying to find the appropriate ways that we can provide software and technology capabilities to support those initiatives. The concept of governance, which is the topic here this morning, is one of the most relevant conversations that occurs. And it occurs really in two different capacities. One is in our ability to deliver services that support our customers so that when you are running some sort of technology-based process, you are in full compliance with the policies, the regulatory, the legal actions, the political actions that may exist within organizations, and being able to deliver that in a global scale. There are about 105 countries around the world where my team does business every day, so we have a very large task in front of us. Now, the other side is we have to ensure internally that we are in full compliance, have governance models so that we can deliver towards the regulatory requirements we have for things like financial reporting along those lines, but also in how we certify the services that we deliver to our customers. So things like the cloud become the more relevant conversation today. We have to ensure in the US alone that we can support the requirements from the federal government for things like information security, healthcare, data protection and privacy, criminal justice, evidence management types of services. And as I said, it's a large task for us to be able to deliver from a technology perspective. The good thing is we have a dedicated group of people that do nothing more than our governance and corporate affairs work so that we are keeping a close eye as to what's happening around the world. Now, I say around the world in the sense that we look at technology really not as something that we want to just deliver or sell to organizations, but we want to use it as an enabler. And the challenge that we have is that organizations are looking for innovative ideas to be able to deliver better levels of service to organizations, but on the flip side, they have to ensure that there is a full set of compliance regulatory components, the performance capabilities exist, and that it's delivered on the type of device that people are looking for. And I say that because I deal with ministers' office very frequently, with department secretaries, and their entire goal is to be able to use a device that fits in their pocket or in their hand to have a constant look as to what's happening within their organization. And they want to look at it for things like measurement tools, so they want to know the number of emergency vehicles that are being dispatched each day, or the response time of those emergency vehicles. They want to know the number of children that are in schools that are being supported via some sort of government-led nutrition program, so school lunch programs. They want to be able to engage in areas where homelessness is a big issue and ensuring that if there are beds available for people or families that need a place to be, they have an easy access to see those. So what we do is we work very closely with governments around the world to collect that information and then publish it. Now, I'm going to use a couple of open data sites just to paint the vision as to how we look at these things. And this is not a plug for Oracle by any means, because in some cases we do provide some technology support. In many cases, though, open source technologies are being used, of which we fully support and integrate with. But places like India's open data sets that are published that show all types of areas around agriculture, around health, around education, around public safety, around fiscal responsibility. The sites exist, and as I said, many are built on open source technologies and allow information to be shared. This is a very high level of governance models or sharing of information that can be used for governance discussions. Now, along the same lines, I was recently traveling and I was in New Zealand, and I met with the federal government or the central government in New Zealand, and they were talking a bit about the disclosure of financial information. They wanted to share all of the fiscal information that is beyond the national security realm, but be able to deliver capabilities in that sense. And so they've started drilling down in their open data portal to be able to show things like fiscal updates, and they provide it not just in raw data numbers, but they actually are showing this in graphs, they're showing it in APIs that people can absorb data for, and use this as a form of governance compliance, but also being able to collect feedback and input from some of the citizens. Now, on the same side, I live in the U.S. I'm based in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. in Seattle. I'll give an open invitation. If anybody comes to the Seattle area, make sure you look me up, and I'll make sure to give you the private tour. I live in the city of Redmond, and I don't know how many people keep up with the technology providers, but the city of Redmond is where Microsoft is based. And about 15 miles from me are the headquarters of Amazon. And about 20 miles in a different direction are the headquarters of Boeing. And about 20 miles in another direction are the headquarters of Starbucks. Facebook, Google, all have big presence where I happen to live. And one of the things that these organizations do is they have to publish information per the requirements of the US federal government. Now, I don't know the exact amount of time, but about 10 years ago or so, the US federal government started publishing open data. And the results have been extremely well received, but the challenge is there's so much data that's being published, it becomes very challenging to absorb that data. Just on this site alone, there are 135,277 data sets as of yesterday when I took the screenshot. And every day, the number of data sets continues to increase. This makes it daunting and overwhelming to try to collect the appropriate information. So what's begun to happen is other organizations are now stepping up to publish this information. Now, as the comment was, I worked for Microsoft for a number of years before coming back to Oracle. And my former boss, a gentleman by the name of Steve Ballmer, was working with some of his partners recently. And what they realized were they wanted to help share information about these open data sets. And they took the access to the APIs and the data, and they basically just said, let's give you an easier way to consume the data. So instead of going to a central place to collect the data and try to find the data sets that you want, they basically said, let's aggregate and organize a site that allow people to drill down. So people can say, well, what's happening with my tax dollars? What is the government doing with the money that I actually am using? And you can type in just a search. You can say, what are the number of teachers in the US? What are the number of, or what's the crime rate that happens to be there? And there's an artificial intelligence engine that runs behind the scenes that takes the message from a chatbot concept and applies it into something usable. So in this particular case, I asked the question, what's the spend for higher education institutions that are supported by state governments? So think of this as a state-funded university. And the reason I ask this is, well, I'm a parent, and I'm a citizen, and I have 3 children. My oldest is a freshman at the University of Oregon. I have a 15-year-old that will be going to school soon, and I have a 10-year-old daughter. And so my interest is, as a citizen, ensuring that the states are still applying the right level of funding to the programs if my interest is in public-funded universities or the public education system. This is just one way that I can use data that happens to be being published in a governance model from the overall organizations that are requesting this. Now, just to paint a vision, Oracle held an event on Tuesday called Oracle Open World. It's the first time we've ever done it in India, very well attended, but one of the key themes that I talked about was smart cities, because this is something that I spend a lot of time talking about. And the verticals, the lines that you happen to see, these are the areas that we tend to see cities prioritizing. And I should be careful in saying it's not just cities. There are states that prioritize here, there are councils, there are other municipalities that are interested in these areas. But this is where I tend to see the procurements that are occurring. The very first column around government services and the modernization of government services, this tends to be where most of the governance and compliance requirements appear. And when they do, my team engages globally to ensure that we can deliver the right results, whether directly from Oracle or with our partners. And within India alone, we have 30,000 employees based here in India. So our goal is to make sure that we can support what's happening in India, but also export some of the great things, like the Smart City program that the Prime Minister is supporting. We want to export some of the things that are working to other places around the world. To do that, just to give you an idea, and again, this is a slide that I use to show how we do some of our compliance, happens to be part of a product set that we offer. But when we do some of the basic back office capabilities around things like enterprise resource planning, so think of things like financial management, planning and budgeting, supply chain. There's an entire governance model that exists. And if you notice, in the bottom right-hand corner, it says governance, risk, and compliance. This is actually a module that's built into the software that we deliver because we know that this process has to occur. So our interest is being able to support the capabilities and requirements of all of the governmental organizations, either that are delivering service in need of governance, or they need to comply with some governance model. We want to deliver it right out of the box. And it works extremely well. We had an announcement at Oracle World where with all of the GST changes that are occurring here in India, our CEO came out with a comment that said, by the way, behind the scenes, Oracle's been working with all of the new changes in the GST program so that when the program goes live, our financial management system will be in 100% compliance. As far as I know, this is the first time that we've been able to deliver something so rapidly because we understand the importance of this model, and the underlying platform of how cloud technologies work today makes it so much easier for us to do that. What I'll leave you with is, our goal is always to provide some sort of a common view of looking at information. And this just happens to be a screenshot of an application that we're actually running in Hall 11, just across the street here. If anybody happens to be walking around, stop by the Oracle stand and you'll see a large set of screens that show exactly what I'm showing here. This is our way to use analytic capabilities to highlight the data that's important for organizations in an easy consumable fashion. So some of the things that we find city leaders are looking for is they want to know the number of emergencies that are happening in the city. They want to know the number of non-emergencies that need to be attended to, that typically have a cost associated to them. So maybe it's malfunctioning heating and cooling systems in a large venue. Something like that tends to use a lot of extra energy and causes a lot of additional cost. So organizations are looking for single places to be able to pull all of this information together and then apply the governance models directly on top of it. So with that, hopefully that gives you an idea just of how we tend to look at it from a governance side and how we tend to interact with organizations around the world. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joel. And I have a question maybe later on, so just be prepared for that. About the big data that we are coming across, because smart cities and the kind of command centers that we're developing. And I was just going through this article, the book, I hope the very enlightening book called The Weapons of Math Destruction, not mass, but math destruction. And how big data increases inequality and threatens democracy. And the study has been done in US itself. So maybe I'll come to it a little later. How do you really understand that, comprehend it, and what are the, how really we have to move forward. Anyway, and thank you so much for making this presentation. Now we have Mr. Patrick Santillo, Minister Counselor for Commercial Affairs, US Embassy in India, in New Delhi. And as the Senior Commercial Officer in India, he leads a team of more than 75 professionals working in 7 offices across the country. This includes representatives from the US Department of Commerce's US and Foreign Commercial Service, Patent and Trademark Office. Is this profile with amongst the people? Okay, so I'll have to read it because else, no problem. We have time, don't worry. Trademark Office and Bureau of Industry and Security. Together they promote US exports, open foreign markets to American products, protect US commercial and intellectual property interests abroad, enforce US export control requirements, and encourage. So you can understand what the profile that Patrick has. And I urge on Mr. Patrick to use the podium, or will you speak from here, to use the podium and speak about the topic that we have today on the Mayor's Conclave about improving governance model. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and fellow panel members. Great to be up here with you today. What all of you cannot see is that the Deputy Mayor has a bell right in front of him. So my job is to talk about what I need to talk about this morning before he starts pressing that bell and getting me off the microphone. So I will do my best. It's wonderful to be here with you. I think in the short time that I have with you, what I'd like to do is really share with you 3 universal truths about these kinds of events. And the first universal truth, of course, is that we know that you are all very busy, and we know that you have other ways that you could be spending your time. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning and for listening in on the discussions that will be happening here today. As a generalist in doing what I do, I encounter an awful lot of people in different industry sectors and frankly in different walks of lives. And it's really refreshing to come into a group like this where we have civic leaders who are making everyday decisions that really impact all of our lives, not just their lives, but all of our lives on a very real basis. So the work that you are doing is very important and it's very visible. And that's part of, I think, what matters with governance is that so much of what you do is in fact visible to your citizens, to your city, to the state, and really to the country. So thank you for those efforts. The second universal truth about especially events like this is that there are so many choices of what you can listen into. And it's hard for us to make that decision while we're at a conference about which exact panel should I go to? What session should I sit in? So I do appreciate you coming and joining us this morning for this particular session, but I think, honestly, that the topics that we're here to talk about, citizen engagement, good governance, these are really the core foundations upon which many of the other dialogues that will be going on are based. So I think what we're talking about here this morning really is critically important. Now, I haven't been in India all that long, about 8 months, I guess, at this point. And, you know, you do hear about different things and you try to understand what's being discussed. Certainly, I can say that smart cities is a topic that's getting a lot of attention. Certainly, even on my calendar, it's a topic that has received a lot of attention. I do understand that in the next 20 years, 68 cities in India will in fact have a population greater than 1 million. To put that number in perspective, that's double the number that's currently in the European segment, in Europe, if you will. So 68 cities, how are they going to modernize? What are they going to do? Deloitte estimates that 600 global major cities generate 60% of global GDP. It's very clear then that urbanization is critical to economic growth and indeed to prosperity. McKinsey also estimates that by 2030, cities will generate 70% of new employment across India. So we know that these smarter cities, and the smarter the city that it can be, the smarter and better sustainable and inclusive path to growth and prosperity will be. So we are very pleased as the U.S. government that we've been able to engage in the smart city discussion, in the smart application discussion. Certainly at the central level, we engage with the government of India through the strategic and commercial dialogue. This is one of our high-level dialogues. We actually have a work stream that focuses on smart cities work, and we use that mechanism to engage with the government of India at the central level. Last December, another example, was at the Department of Commerce, my home agency, and the U.S. Trade and Development Agency organized a full-day Smart Cities technical workshop in New Delhi, and that brought together about 150 delegates, city leaders, and officials who were there to hear about some of the best practices. Our U.S. TDA, as we call it, the Trade and Development Agency, is preparing to launch the next phase of technical assistance for Vizag, one of our smart city partners, and continues to support smart city development efforts in Ajmer and Allahabad. I will be planning to go to Ajmer later in this month to talk to city leaders about some of their smart city efforts and to see how we may be able to play a role. USAID, or U.S. Agency for International Development, is demonstrating the benefits of smart energy meters in the city of Ajmer. And of course, the Department of Commerce is fully engaged, supporting the AmCham capability deck. If you have not seen that, I do encourage you to take a look. This is a listing of some of the U.S. companies who happen to be members of our AmCham, and it provides information on the solutions that they provide to your cities. And last year, for example, our Deputy Secretary brought a group of 18 U.S. solution providers, technology providers, coming in to India, and they went across India offering and trying to talk about some of those solutions. So we have been engaged, and we certainly stand ready to connect with all of you here. As we do that connectivity, of course, that brings me to the next topic, which is the intersection, if you will, between the government and the private sector. We know that government cannot do it alone. They need partnerships with the private sector, partnerships with the private sector. And I stress partnerships because I think in that equation, that's really the key word. We believe that our U.S. companies can be valuable partners with you and cooperate directly with you and with their own Indian partners, some of whom they have on the ground here. So from city planning to water and wastewater management, and from intelligent transportation to renewable energy solutions, our U.S. companies are championing clean and efficient smart cities technologies around the world and here in India, and they are enhancing citizen engagement and saving cities money and resources in the process. U.S. companies at this exhibition alone are offering smart solutions from project management services to payment solutions and sewer and water monitoring equipment. And of course, these are just some of the examples. I won't go on and on about the list, or the deputy mayor will in fact hit the bell. But let me say that many of the U.S. companies are already partnering with Indian cities to deliver these smart city projects, including smart city master plans in Vizag and Amravati, integrating command and control technologies in Bhubaneswar, and introducing demand response energy solutions in Kolkata. So you can see that we really are active across India. I do hope that while you're here this week, you'll take time to meet with some of those companies. And we know that even though the governments are the stewards of these projects, as I say, they cannot do it alone. Just one more fact that has been reported to us: we understand that 100 smart cities in India will require the investment of more than $150 billion over the next few years. Deloitte estimates that local governments, all of you in the room, will need to attract private sector investment worth approximately $120 billion US dollars. So the need is at 150. You'll be funding some, Central will be funding some, but look at the massive amount that has to come in from the private sector. But we all know that to attract that private sector investment, we all, in every city, not in the United States, not in India, but really across the world, it is a global competition to attract that investment and to attract those companies that are offering those solutions and those technologies. And we know that improved governance, and even to a large measure citizen engagement, help make the decisions about where those companies will go. And I think Joel gave us some great examples of how good governance is being applied in real settings that are currently existing with the current data. But I'm going to take even just one step back from that and say, as we set out to attract that investment, what are some of the good governance indicators that our companies and others that are competitive across the world will be looking at? We believe that this improved governance offers well-defined contracts that properly balance risk between the public and private sectors. So if these are our partners, we want to share that risk across all of the players. We understand that no business, U.S. or Indian, will really want to invest in a project with unclear contractual terms or minimal chance of recovering their investment. We believe that the improved governance includes involving the private sector often and early as a partner in the project development and design phases. They are problem solvers, these companies are, and they can help us articulate the problem in a way that really then leads it to a professional and well-developed call for answers in the form of tenders and so forth. I think increasingly we believe that improved governance is adopting a best value approach to procurement, enabling cities to purchase high-quality goods and services while ensuring long-term cost savings. Let me say a word, and I'll sort of digress from the remarks here just for a moment, because since I've been in India, we hear a great deal about this lowest cost solution. And I tend to think of this as, I do understand the pressure. I understand the pressure very well on going with low-cost solution. But I invite us for a moment to think about the act of, where necessary, clearing a forest, right? Clearing a forest, something we can all kind of appreciate. You can go to the hardware store and you can buy an axe. And that axe is, in fact, going to be the lowest cost solution for clearing that forest. But then think about somebody who's going to come along with a chainsaw, all right? They're going to be able to clear that forest a little more quickly. They're going to be able to process that wood. They're going to be able to use that land for another use. So I get the fact that the chainsaw is indeed more expensive, and you know this, than the axe, but the pressure to go with the axe up front brings a lot of pressure to you as civic leaders. We empathize with that, but increasingly we are hopeful, and we do see some signs that this value approach is indeed winning, and we do believe that is the trend for the future, because we believe it results in better outcomes for the citizens. Finally, I think that we all agree that when it comes to smart cities and smart solutions, this improved governance is going to recognize the role that technology plays in defining the success of these projects. This will mean that project tenders will need to take into account the role and use of these technologies in providing solutions to citizens. And as such, we believe that this improved government is pushing us to ensure that these technologies that do get integrated are able to be integrated seamlessly and avoid locking cities into only one solution or product. We do believe that in this regard, adopting international standards helps ensure interoperability among the various technologies. So we believe that there's not really any question at all, but that improved governance includes ever higher levels of citizen engagement, from concept to execution. In the smart cities that I've seen, the ones that we've been most closely affiliated with, it's also clear that the leaders are doing their utmost to engage with the citizens, and they are endeavoring to be ever more responsive. And that kind of brings me back to my first point, which in so many very real ways, you as civic leaders are the most responsive to citizens' needs. And the further we move away from those needs, the easier it is sometimes to become a little bit less responsive. So I admire and appreciate the work that you're doing. Now, I said that in the time I had, without the bell going off, I would offer up 3 universal truths. For those of you who might be keeping track, I've only gotten to 2 of them, which really does bring me to the 3rd universal truth, which is the longer that I talk up here, the less time it is for us to hear from the experts and really to be responsive to your questions. So I think I should stop there now. Thank you for the time, and honestly, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick, and for making this vision about how the US understands this project of smart cities, and of course the difference between the saw and the power saw. You know, I remember when I was a child in my school days, I was given a sentence that the same word should be figuring thrice in a sentence. So I remember saw. So I remember I saw a saw which could not saw. So anyway, but I think my Indian counterparts who are here, who are experts, who are critiques, and who are like we have the deputy mayor here, and also about the companies. One thing which is very important about the unfolding of these smart cities is this huge infrastructure that is being demanded. And I remember the union minister, MOUD minister, saying that the cities don't have the money and they go to the state governments. You know how the fiscal management is done in our country. We have huge debts. The state governments are completely mired by debts. They don't even have the money to pay the salaries of their employees. So I remember this anecdote, and that's why I thought I must share it here. So he said this, and he was emphasizing on the need for the private players to really enter into infrastructure building and all that stuff. So he said the cities don't have money, they go to the state governments. You know, the state government is, for me, is the state governments. So the state governments also don't have money, they go to the central government. The central government is also broke, and then they go to the international institutions. And now, now we have, if 100 rupees are being spent on building urban infrastructure in the country, 50 rupees comes from foreign investments. But the point is, where exactly these investments have to go. For example, this example about the saw and the power saw. Remember, the scale in India is huge. Even if I have to replace my water meters, and I have to move from my average kind of stuff to volumetric reading, the scale is huge. But what do I want? My narrative, when I say I, means the urban spectrum. What I want is not just the high-tech meters where I can get all the reading on my mobile. Maybe that is too late for me. What is important for me is that the consumer is adequately charged and the NRW comes down. So I think it is this road which we have to keep in mind when we are unfolding this agenda of urbanization in India. And this brings me to the talk. I'm the next speaker, Dr. Ramanath Sonawane, but he is a complete misfit for me. Why? Because I have this 5 years, he is from a literature background. Imagine writing a book, poetry on Diana. Is it true, sir? So three-act play, yeah. So someone from literature who has a doctorate in English literature, I'm so glad. That was my passionate. That was my passion. And also a law graduate. But we are very glad, and since who has this first-hand information, he's been a commissioner also of a municipality, and now an additional commissioner of Nagpur. Nagpur is a very big municipality. And his engagement with the unfolding of smart cities, Nagpur also happens to be part of the smart city bandwagon. So I would like Dr. Ramanath Sonawane to share his experiences. And the podium is yours. So you can use the mic or the podium, whatever you want. Thank
you. Good morning, friends. Honorable Chairman and Deputy Mayor of Shimla Municipal Corporation, the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, and dear participants. Since the Honorable Chairman reminded me of my background, I really recollect one poem by W.B. Yeats, The Second Coming. The Second Coming. The title of the poem is Second Coming, written by W.B. Yeats, and in which he says, "The turning and turning, widening gyre, falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, center cannot hold, and mere anarchy is loosed upon the world." Today's topic is improving government. In that poem, he says that there is total anarchy. You see, it may not be there in the developed countries as far as administration is concerned, as far as governance is concerned. But when we talk about the developing countries, when we talk about a huge democracy like India, this is the biggest challenge, how to improve governance. It is often said that the people get the government as they are. It is actually, the government is elected by the people, and it depends upon the elected representatives. I believe every municipal corporation may not be as lucky as Shimla, because the mayor of Shimla, the deputy mayor of Shimla appears to be more of a bureaucrat than the politician. That is what my first impression is. Let us talk about improving governance. There are 3 prerequisites for improving governance. First, the citizens should elect good people. First prerequisite. Second prerequisite, the government or the elected representatives should select good bureaucrats, good administrators. And third prerequisite is the elected representatives and the bureaucrats should understand the needs of the citizens and evolve a governance structure based on the technology, because technology is the enabler. This is the third prerequisite. A blend of correct technology, a choice of correct technology will certainly improve the service delivery system. What is important, you see, for the citizen, he needs services. It is the duty of the elected representatives to take policy decisions based on the aspirations of the citizens. And it is the bounden duty of the bureaucrats to implement the decisions taken by the policymakers. And I believe there is something wrong somewhere. In all these 3 tiers of governance, there is something wrong. Here today, in fact, the focus is use of ICT-based solutions in improving governance. But before that, we need to understand what is the existing structure of governance. We need to carry out business process re-engineering. We need to understand the existing systems. We need to find out the gaps in the existing systems. You see, whatever is the best in developed countries may not be actually implementable or may not be affordable to the developing countries. Here today, I see one thing, and even in my previous conferences that I have noticed, the developed countries send their representatives to the developing countries just to make them understand the need for change and the need for use of technology in day-to-day administration, without understanding the ground realities. Our cities are unmanageable now. If we compare the services provided by the local bodies, I do not distinguish between functions of rural local body and the functions of urban local body. If we actually see the service levels, then we see huge gap in the service levels. And it is not that we do not have resources. We may be talking about financial resources, but it is not that we do not have resources. Our resources are either underutilized or misutilized. That's why I say it is necessary to, first of all, prioritize our needs, prepare proper policies, prepare proper action plans, and prepare the strategies. ICT interventions, it is one of the strategies for improving governance. Implementation of ICT-based smart solutions, it is no doubt required nowadays. If at all we have to be abreast of time, if at all the governance structure in India has to be at par with governance structure in any European countries or any other developed country, then we need to understand, first of all, what are the gaps. Because we are also the largest democracy. Our decision making, there is no flaw in our decision making process. Our politicians have vision. We have policies in place. The gap is in implementation of policies. And that is due to lack of proper plans, lack of proper strategies. Therefore, if we are debating or deliberating on this issue, how to use smart solutions which are actually used either in other developed countries, then the people who come to us with the technology, the representatives from developed countries who come to us with the technology should also come to us with another helping hand of investing. Without investment, without financial support, we are not in a position to implement the solutions which are actually implemented in developed countries. As far as my own experience is concerned, we implemented first e-governance solution in Kalyan Dombivli when I was a deputy commissioner there. And that was the first one in India, first e-governed municipal corporation in India. But even though we started implementation of e-governance solutions in 2002, still we could not achieve 100% e-governed municipal corporation. Front end is there, but the back end is lacking. When we talk about e-governance, we talk about paperless office. Is it a reality today? The answer is no. Will it happen in near future? I am optimistic it will happen, but in how many days, it cannot be predicted. And then today we are talking about even de-governance. Before actually achieving e-governance in holistic way, in all spheres of governance, be it be a Gram Panchayat, that is rural governance, be it be the municipal council or the corporation, that is urban, be it be a state government or central government, we have not yet achieved 100% e-governance solutions. And then we have started talking about de-governance, which will be cashless transactions, paperless transactions. Will it happen? The answer is yes, it can happen. And actually with the assistance of developed countries, with the proactive support of developed countries, it can happen. All that is required is, again, we need to actually plan and utilize our resources in a very thoughtful way. And unfortunately, that is not happening. I personally feel deliberations like this will really help the representatives to understand what is the existing level of services, what is going wrong in our existing governance framework, how we need to reorganize our systems. It is often said that let the people think and systems work. The system should work. It is not happening. When we talk about good governance, it is the system. And what are the prerequisites of good governance again? The transparency and accountability. When we talk about transparency, on one hand we talk about transparency, and on the other hand, we are unwilling to disseminate information. We should proactively, when we talk about the basic need for transparency is, we should proactively disseminate entire information related to decision-making process and the execution. Is it happening? The answer is no. In spite of the implementation of Right to Information Act, the kind of transparency that we expect in administration, the kind of transparency that we expect, that is actually not there. And in terms of accountability, what is accountability? Who is accountable? For what? We actually do not know. You see, there is a technical wing, there is administrative wing, there is financial wing. But if someone commits some mistake, all of them are held responsible. A mistake committed by a technical person, you see, a man from finance doesn't know anything about technical things. Our bureaucracy lacks those skills. The policymakers also, they lack these kind of skills. And that's why when we talk about accountability, we really need to have proper set of principles, proper set of rules to fix the accountability. E-governance or de-governance, whatever we want to achieve, we should actually decide without e-governance, we can't achieve de-governance. Without improving basic framework of governance, we really can't take step forward. And therefore, we need to introspect, we need to deliberate, and then come to the conclusion, what do really we need, what do the citizens really need? Because again, when we talk about smart cities, we talk about extensive citizen engagement. And citizens talk about water, citizens talk about sanitation, citizens talk about infrastructure, they need roads first, they need schools, they need hospitals. And then they need again smart solutions to improve service delivery. So this is, I think, my just unorganized thinking. Maybe because I was actually expecting a panel discussion here and not a presentation or a speech. Thank you very much for bearing with me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramanath Sonawane. And before I invite the last speaker, and then we'll have this discussion, let me just give a narrative to what Dr. Ramanath was saying, and because he is also someone who's completely engaged into this urban, the urbanization that is happening in our country. And even I am, for the last 5 years, being the deputy mayor, facing the challenges that urbanization poses and the whole gamut of governance. There's one thing which is very important, and that is what you also emphasize upon, is that one size doesn't fit all. Because what you're discussing in US, or for that matter, Oracle, or Australia, or Europe, in fact, if you go, I was there in COP21 for the climate change talks. And I remember the INDCs, I mean, we have that intention, objectives, I mean, the goals that my government speaks about, happens to be that more than 19 million do not have access to safe drinking water. So for me, to have a smart city means what? People should not suffer from diarrhea. So I think that narrative has to be kept in mind. That's number one. Number two, because I was part of the National Task Force during the previous government to review the 74th Constitutional Amendment. For those of our friends who've come from abroad, probably you won't be able to understand, we have the Indian Constitution, and one of the amendments that speaks about the devolution of powers. Why you have to empower the local government? When we speak, it's the city government. Because it was not explicitly mentioned, and actually it evolved in different shapes. For example, the city that I come from, Shimla, happened to be one of the oldest municipality, 1851. So we had this classic model of urbanization, classic model of urban governance, where municipality was at the head and everything was being ruled by the municipality. But it was not everywhere. And in fact, there also, the term that I coin is the reverse metamorphoses have taken place. In fact, powers have been snatched. And generally, my daughter always asks me, Papa, what do you do? What is your job? I said, I am the first garbage man of the city, because that is a function universal to the mayor in country, frankly speaking. And generally what the mayors are, probably deputy mayor will agree with me, the function of the mayor happens to be cut the ribbon, kiss the child, okay? So planning and all you can't even discuss. But one of the contributions of that National Task Force is, and unfortunately that report hasn't come out, and this is what I really scream out at all the conferences, in fact, is that why don't you just part of 10% of the income tax that you collect from the cities back to the city governments, and see the change. Just see the change. This we have experience in Europe. Why can't that happen in a country like India? And the third aspect about which I thought Sir would speak about, Dr. Ramanath, is this unfolding of the contradiction that is brewing in between the elected government and the SPVs that are being formed. Because SPVs in China, you can understand, you know how democracy takes place in China. But in India, where it is quite inherent into the blood of the elected representatives, there you're finding that the SPV, in fact, you have a chairperson of the SPV who's not the mayor, who's a bureaucrat. And at many places, for example, in Dharamsala, in Gwalior, I remember, in many other places, they've said, we don't want this SPV to function. So if that contradiction starts brewing in, and that starts coming to the fore, then who is the repository of taking forward this agenda of smart cities? I think that's a serious challenge that I just wanted to put in front of the audience. Though I'm abusing my position as a chair, I shouldn't have said that, but you know, a chair is a chair, huh? I can abuse that. So this takes me to the last speaker of our discussion, because I think it's so important. Urban governance is so important. And what we are discussing about is just urban infrastructure. If urban infrastructure, there is no dialectics between urban infrastructure and urban governance, this project is bound to fall. It is going to fall the same way like we had a fall of the JNNURM reforms. It was a complete collapse. So we don't want it to go that way. We want this to be, like you said, prioritizing all that stuff. Probably later we can come to it. Miss Marg Allan, who happens to be the regional director of Loddon Mallee, State Government of Victoria, Australia, and she has an extensive career in local government. So probably you will explain, ma'am. I won't go back into that big profile. So please, the podium is yours.
Namaste. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. It's a great honour for me to be able to speak to the mayors and commissioners of India. As the chair said, I'm the regional director for the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, which is a state government department in the state of Victoria. And I'm responsible for a region in the northwest of Victoria, which has a population of 320,000 people and spans 10 regional and rural municipalities. I'm based in the city of Bendigo, and it's got a population of 110,000, give you a bit of a context. Why I'm in India this week, I'm part of a trade mission organised by the city of Melbourne. Melbourne is our state capital, and Melbourne is known as the most livable city in the world and has had that reputation for some years now. I'm representing the state government as part of that trade mission, and we're working with a number of businesses from Melbourne with planning, water, teaching and learning expertise, looking for collaboration opportunities here in India. And we've had a fabulous week. So I want to acknowledge my mission colleagues, and in particular Councillor Kevin Louis from the City of Melbourne, who's here today. Today I'm excited that technology is bringing us together to create better lives now and in the future for business and government, and for a better world for future generations. The Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning is excited to be working with the local government sector in sharing ideas and experiences with our international colleagues. While my talk will focus on the regional city of Bendigo's bid to be recognised as a smart city by the Australian government, I also want to acknowledge a smart city bid from Australia's largest current urban renewal project. Known as Fisherman's Bend, the area covers 180 hectares in the heart of Melbourne and will consist of 5 precincts across 2 municipalities, which will connect Melbourne's centre, the CBD, with Port Phillip Bay. It's expected by 2050 it will be the home of approximately 80,000 residents and provide employment for up to 60,000 people. Both Fisherman's Bend and the Bendigo project are seeking Australian government funding known as City Deals in July this year as part of the country's Smart Cities plan. Given the emphasis on smart cities across the globe, it is fitting that our department is tasked with creating livable, inclusive, sustainable communities that support jobs and growth in our state of Victoria. We recognise the link between built and natural environment in the quality of our lives and the work to accommodate population growth while maintaining world-class livability and protecting our heritage for future generations. The department brings together planning, local government, environment, energy, suburban development, forests, emergency management, climate change and water functions in one single department to strengthen connections across environment, community, industry and economy. Sounds confusing and sometimes it is. We work with a range of organisations across government, private sector and research institutes and universities to ensure government policies and processes are not left behind in a digital world. The department has a keen interest in livability and how we can be smarter, more efficient and results-driven for industry, business and our citizens. And we're very enthusiastic in adopting research partners to support export of Victorian services and expertise in livability while seeking new ideas from our global neighbours. A key partnership is with Victorian regional communities who aspire to be smart cities. Australia's regional cities make the perfect testing environment for larger smart city policies and projects. And places like Bendigo have all the elements of an ecosystem that need to work together to achieve better outcomes for both citizens and business. Our department is uniquely placed to be working with the City of Greater Bendigo and the Bendigo business community to support their bid to be a smart city. Our vision is for a prosperous Bendigo, globally known as one of the great small cities of the world, for its self-determined focus on growth and inclusive approach to prosperity where every citizen benefits. The bid's purpose is to harness technology and capital through the Commonwealth Government's City Deal to build momentum for growth and to create new value in our city and for our city and for all its citizens. So the bid is primarily focused around using technology to make our lives better. Bendigo has key features of a living laboratory, and this concept of living laboratory is one that I want you to think about, where ideas can be tested. And these factors that enable it to be a living laboratory are things like a population of 110,000, its proximity to a major city only 2 hours away, sustained partnerships across health, resources, transport, educational attainment and social equity. It has agreed with the state government to grow its population to 200,000, so it's a city on a growth trajectory. A desire to collaborate with private sector, parties in sensor technology, wearable devices, software applications and more to discover new solutions to long-term problems. Bendigo is known for a collaborative culture across its leaders. In realising a smarter Bendigo, this is a key strength and core value proposition for governments and private investors to invest and partner with us. The city has a proven track record for realising complex, innovative projects because of the collaborative culture and mindset. A strategic advantage for Smarter Bendigo is that Bendigo is the home to the Bendigo and Adelaide Bank, a global leader in leveraging capital for common good through transformational community banking services. Significant opportunities exist in Bendigo to look at new models for value capture from current asset base across the city, particularly in the public realm. We will build on collective mindset focused on value creation through entire supply chain. Bendigo proposes to leverage ICT-enabled nature of the new Bendigo Hospital to attract private sector technology partners to build and test solutions to improve health outcomes and patient care. Smart Bendigo has 7 pathways to prosperity that will set the strategic path for the city to take from where we are today to where it wants to be in 10 years' time. The 7 pathways are smarter governance, smarter connectivity, smarter people, smarter resources, smarter financing, smarter health, and smarter measurement and evaluation. Each pathway aims to turn current challenges into strengths, to attract investment, talent and technology, discovering new solutions in a living laboratory. Smarter City Bendigo is the perfect living laboratory for technology companies to test and perfect solutions in a welcoming and cooperative environment. The implementation of the 7 pathways is based on 3 stages. Stage 1, demonstration projects over 1 to 2 years with seed capital. Stage 2, commission projects over 2 to 5 years where the cost benefits and business cases are developed for future investment. And Stage 3, audacious and bold projects with a 5 to 10 year horizon, delving into possibilities, blue sky thinking we call it. Smarter Bendigo seeks an initial investment from the state government and federal government of only $8 million over 3 years to implement the 7 pathways to a stage where private sector investment can be sought. The early implementation will include solidifying an innovative nodal governance model, investment in capacity of local leaders, delivery of a series of demonstration tech interventions, and establishment of independent evaluation model with local universities. It will also include the completion of a series of detailed business cases and documents to medium-term infrastructure investment requirements in water, energy, affordable housing, data analytics and health. Detailed business cases will then inform the early prospectus of a possible bond issue, which is where we seek private investment to develop the long-term outcomes. The nodal governance structure proposed by Smarter Bendigo is a model often proposed by public-private sector partnerships to deliver large infrastructure projects. Smarter Bendigo will adopt a consortium-based model approach to leverage commercial acumen, talent and resources across local pillar organisations with corporate supporters supported by government. Our approach to a governance framework for the city deal will deliver a set of conditions to attract private sector investment and allow greater continuity and involvement of trusted local leaders through successive turns of government as they change, greater investor confidence and consideration of medium to long-term outcomes, higher exposure of accountability to local organisations to deliver the long-term deals, use of private sector talent and commercial acumen to deliver alongside government. So it won't be just based on government to deliver the deals, leveraging resources and consortium partners to enhance prospective projects under a city deal. What is vital is the role of regional cities as incubators and testing grounds in the development of smarter technology, ideas and good governance. There's no doubt that the smart city concept is an exciting opportunity for cities all around the world. In July this year in Melbourne, we are most fortunate to be hosting the Eco City World Summit, where one of the major themes will be smart cities for people. The summit will be amongst the most globally significant forum for addressing complex issues facing a rapidly urbanised world. And the Honourable Al Gore will be attending the summit as the principal speaker, so I encourage you to think about attending. The timing of this summit ties well with the work we are doing on smart cities. Smart cities will enable better decision making. The more data we have, the more opportunities there are to deal with the issues of this rapidly changing world. It's so important that we also focus on and identify creating pathways for a more sustainable, resilient and equitable cities for future generations. I wish you all good luck and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Marg, Allan, for giving such a vibrant presentation. And now I open the floor for discussion, for questions, because we have 10 or 15 minutes. We can have one round of maybe 5 questions. 5 questions, and then I'll ask the speakers to respond. So can we just have the mic in the audience, please? Introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Somnath Mitra. I'm part of Smart City Advisory in Yes Bank. I'm doing my PhD on smart cities at IIT Delhi. I have 2 questions. One to my friend from Oracle. We talk about ICT infrastructure. What is your views on ICT blueprint for the cities that we are seeing evolving? The second question is for the mayors that we have on the podium is, what is your views on the innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation strategy in your respective city? Because that's really job creation, entrepreneurship is really a topic which is discussed among multiple policy circles. So these are the 2 variety questions I have. Thank you, sir.
So, let's take 5, and then I'll ask the speakers to respond. Yeah? The speakers, please jot down your questions. Yeah?
Thank you to the chairperson and all the panelists. It has been a very honest discussion. My name is
Can you just introduce yourself, ma'am?
Yeah, my name is Hina Zia. I work with GBCI, which is the certification and credentialing arm for lead rating systems and several products. I have got 3 questions if I'm allowed to ask. First question is to the chairperson, which is, I know it has been deliberated, but it's like if more powers are, and of course accountability is given to mayors in India like what's there in Europe and other countries, is it going to change the state of affairs in terms of governance? Because you are the voices of people. So that was to the chairperson. To Dr. Sonawane, if you can share your experience about Nagpur, because how things have been, I know there have been challenges which you have talked about, but in terms of visioning and implementation of various smart cities or Amrut level projects, just in that landscape of Nagpur. And to Mr. Joel from Miracle, any examples from India, which is like real test cases of how use of this kind of technology interfaces, and we have so many talking about the same kind of solutions, which I have a difficulty in terms of interpretation, in terms of verifiability of information as well. How this has helped improve the performance.
Character and nature of the cities that per se in India were given the task of managerial work, now the cities are being transformed into becoming entrepreneur. There's nothing bad in it. That is not the point. The point is whether that model can succeed or not is a big question mark. That was one of the questions that was posed. So it's a big question. It's for all of us. I'm very inquisitively watching the unfolding of urbanization in India. That is for you also as well. Now just to carry that forward, the second thing is when someone asks about employment. Come on, employment is not even a question in the cities. Because I told you, the challenge that the city mayor faces is garbage. The challenge that faces proper water, drinking water. Employment, of course, we have the city development plans, we have all that stuff. When I was in Leipzig, I remember for a fellowship on mobility, employment used to be the biggest challenge before the mayor. But hardly it is a challenge anywhere in any of the cities in the country, because given the structured framework we have in our country, of course that has to evolve slowly, where the functions, that is why I said the 74th Constitutional Amendment. Because the 74th Constitutional Amendment speaks about some 12 functions to be parted of. Not more than 4 or 5 functions are there. And this leads me to the third question about the state of affairs. Now, the state of affairs is such, I am not the one who's saying strengthen the mayor. I am the one who's saying strengthen the institution of the executive so that the performance goes well. Do we have the mayor from Chandigarh here? Oh, great, ma'am. So you must ask ma'am. Ask her what is her term. I was fortunate enough because I was directly elected the deputy mayor. I had 5 years of term. Ma'am has just 1 year of term. 3 months in the beginning goes in the welcome party. 3 months in the later half goes as a farewell party. When would she execute? When would she assert? That is the story of the affairs. Why? I don't want to go into those details, because that you have to strengthen. Unless and until you strengthen this institution, I think it will be a serious challenge. And this metamorphosis that is taking place from a technocratic, this is actually the metamorphosis taking place from the city managers to city entrepreneurs. Whether it will succeed or not is a big question mark. I've told you that. We have to understand the socio-economic dynamics. Take, for example, Shimla, my city. My city succeeded because we were the British capital. I mean, we ruled half part of the globe, because that is the place from where the Britishers ruled half part of the globe. But how did it happen? It happened because the infrastructure that was created was from the loot of the world. That is how the infrastructure was created. You were pumping water 2,000 meters above, and that is how water was being supplied, and all that stuff happened. Can we sustain such an infrastructure now? Can we have the same infrastructure running now is a big question mark. So whether it will succeed or not without, for example, in Shimla, not a single PPP model has succeeded, not a single. We had it in transport, we had it in parking, all the models have gone into, it may succeed in Pune. It may succeed in Chandigarh. It may succeed in Mumbai. But so therefore this impetus and this stimulus from the state, whether it is there, for example, JNNU or something else, maybe later we can discuss about that. And yes, ma'am, I think this is what we have to learn from Mahatma Gandhi. What you preach and practice, there has to be complete symbiosis in that. There has to be synchronization. I may not be an ardent follower of Mahatma Gandhi, by the way. But I think you have to understand, that's why I use bicycle to commute to my office. Even now, I have an elevation of 400 meters, and almost 12 kilometers I move. But I use that bicycle. So what you preach and what you practice, that is, I think, the mayors and all of us have to understand. Or else, there's a friend of mine whose name is Leon. He's a complete critique of these smart cities. He teaches in the School of Planning Architecture. He says, and that's my last word, what kind of smart cities are we building? And that is about mobility, where your shit travels faster than you. I think that is a serious challenge that we have to address in India. Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate the patience amongst the audience. Thank you so much. I think it was great having all of you here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I would like to request Shri Tikender Singh to felicitate the distinguished speakers.
So let's start from the lady first. Margaret.
Ms. Marg Allan. Mr. Joel Cherkis. Mr. Patrick Santillo. Mr. Ramanath Sonawane.